If you are a healthy person with no chronic disease and no history of a chronic disease, and you just want to do it to get the benefits of autophagy, is there a taper off of the diet into the water fast? I'm assuming you don't go cold turkey, and then a gradient tapering back on to regular feeding, correct?
Well, that's a really, really good question. I'm so glad you asked that. In fact, I forgot to mention that we recently have gotten data back on a study where we looked at healthy people and what happens to healthy people when they fast. And as powerful as the biomarker changes are in sick people, it turns out the changes in healthy people are in some cases even more profound. It may be that the people that get the most benefit from fasting are actually healthy people looking to use fasting preventatively. And so that's something that we're going to be exploring in much more detail with a much bigger N here later in the year. But the preliminary data is very, very powerful. And yes, it's very important that the lead in and the recovery from fasting be done properly. The lead in to fasting is very important, particularly the 48 hours before you initiate fasting. It needs to be fruit, salad, and steamed vegetables exclusively. No coffee, alcohol, animal foods, no processed, no last chance to have chocolate cheesecake. If you lead in properly with fruit, salad, and steamed vegetables, the likelihood of complications in fasting go down tremendously. And also you can get right into the process and not have to go through as much hell of adaptation, especially things like caffeine withdrawal are very uncomfortable. You don't want to do that at the same time you're trying to adapt to a fasting process. So the lead in, very important, and most important is recovery after fasting. And particularly long-term fasting, too rapid a return to feeding can result in very serious or even life-threatening events. Refeeding syndrome can come up if you take a long fast and do too rapid a recovery into refeeding. We use a day of juice for every 7 days to 10 days of water fasting, a day of raw fruits and vegetables for every 7 to 10 days of fasting, a day of raw fruits, vegetables, and steamed vegetables for every 7 to 10 days of fasting. So on a fast, it takes about half the length of the fast to recover. So a 20-day fast would have 10 days of progressive refeeding before you would return to normal ad libitum, whole plant food, SOS-free diet. And that recovery time is where most of the complaints we get from people that are trying to fast on their own and stuff get into trouble. Most of the complications come not so much the fasting, but because of inappropriate refeeding. And it does absolutely need to be done properly. The best way to fast is actually in one of the facilities around the world that specialize in fasting supervision. However, if people do want to fast remotely, there's a protocol you can follow that will improve the likelihood of your success. We actually have doctors through our telemedicine practice where people can go on to work with a doctor remotely that will work with your local doctor in helping you make sure a history exam and lab have been completed and that you're able to be monitored appropriately so it's done safely. And so we do have doctors that offer those services. And also we have doctors that if you just need to talk to about, in understanding your lab results or recommendations that have been given to you by a more conventional physician, you want to know what your options and opinions are, you can check in with us. We have medical doctors, chiropractors, osteopaths, naturopaths, psychologists that are not idiots. It's a really novel opportunity to talk to doctors that actually have the experience of seeing people get well. And so I would encourage you to take advantage of that. You can access that through our website.
Excellent, Dr. Goldhamer. Thank you. And now we're going to move on to Sophia. I'm unmuting you now. Welcome, Sophia.
Thank you so much for taking my question. Thank you so much, Dr. Goldhamer, for all you are doing for us. I'm vegan and I eat a very healthy plant-based diet. I do 16 intermittent fasting hours as you advise us to do. Mm-hmm. And I successfully got a phone call with you to join TrueNorth Health Center, but unfortunately, due to COVID, I couldn't do. My issue is knee synovial inflammation, and I lately developed like bumps called toffee, and I wonder if there is a way to safely get rid of them. Chiropractors couldn't help me, unfortunately. And I also have gastritis. I tried to eat a lot of veggies to help with this. And my hope is to reschedule an appointment and to go to TrueNorth Health Center.
Yeah, so I would definitely, it would be nice to review your full medical history. So if you haven't done so already, you go onto our website, complete what are called the registration forms. That gets us your medical history. And then I'll be happy to speak with you without cost to determine who would be the best person to help you, either whether it's come to the center, do something on your own, make the dietary changes. If there's somebody close to you, we'll match you up with them. If not, we'll have one of our doctors that can work with you remotely.
That's amazing, Dr. Goldhamer, that you guys do that. And so thank you for sharing that. I'm going to go ahead and move on now to Stephanie. Let's see. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, Dr. Goldhamer. Thank you so much for taking time to answer our questions.
My pleasure.
So last year when I was doing like a raw vegan kind of cleanse and juicing, I decided I kind of wanted to delve into complete fasting. So one day a week, I decided to just do electrolyte, like just do water. And I noticed, because I take my blood pressure every morning. That's one of the things I was trying to kind of get rid of, was the high blood pressure. And I noticed the day after the complete fast, my blood pressure would be higher.
Yes.
And in the days where I was eating, it was like normalized. So it made me terrified to go into maybe 2 days or 3 days or go harder into it. So have you ever seen that before?
Yeah, of
and
course.
do you have any advice on how to move forward with fasting?
Yeah, so that's absolutely one of the reasons why we recommend 16 hours a day as a cap for most people at home, 16 hours every day. And then occasionally you do a longer fast in a controlled setting, because the initial adaptation to fasting is the most expensive time, that first 48 hours or so. So if you're constantly banging on the system with 48-hour fasts, what happens is you tend to get higher ratios of protein mobilized and not the efficiency that happens with a longer term fast. So in your case, I'd recommend you do 16 hours fasting every day, eat a whole plant food SOS-free diet every day. You should be seeing your weight drop consistently, on average about 2 pounds a week if you're overweight, and your blood pressure is going to be dropping proportionally. And then at some point, if there's a little block there or you want to make it happen quicker, then you take some time off and do a longer term fast. But I can assure you that in a controlled setting with proper lead-in, that blood pressure pattern is very predictable and drops. As I said in our study, 174 out of 174 people normalized pressure without the need for meds. I doubt that you're going to be an exception.
Thank you.
What happens in that early phase fasting is sympathetic tone is higher, so there's vasoconstriction, the blood pressure temporarily goes up, but it's a transient effect, and then it normalizes once people get into a resting state.
Excellent. Thanks, Dr. Goldhamer. Up next, we have Monty. Monty, welcome.
Hi. So I think this is the best, fasting is the best solution to the modern dilemma among most of us today. And I think this presentation was one of the most consummate one. However, I fasted for about 10 days when I was much younger, and I lost almost all the weight. I mean, I just drank some coconut water with a couple of with bee pollen. But now I am almost 50 years of age. It's one of the hardest things. I have lost the willpower to fast, and even when I try, it becomes very difficult. Can you tell me what makes it so much more difficult to do so? And question two, what's the most comprehensive scientific-based book that we can find on fasting? And three, can we use herbal teas if we are fasting? Is it?
No, we recommend not to use anything during fasting, including coconut water, bee vomit, herbal teas, or anything else. And there's even the smallest amount of carbohydrate alters the fasting adaptation. So we recommend that if fasting is going to be done, it be done right. As far as books, the book that I like the most is a book called The Pleasure Trap. And the last third of it deals with fasting. I think you'll enjoy that. Another book is by Joel Fuhrman, who's a medical doctor, who actually did an internship with us when he was a medical student. He wrote an excellent book, A Medical Doctor's Guide to Overcoming Chronic Disease, on fasting. And so Dr. Fuhrman, Fuhrman, is another good book. We also have a number of excellent articles that are present on TrueNorthHealth.com that you can go to the library page, and there's all kinds of articles freely available you can download, including all of our studies. And if you go to the Foundation's website at fasting.org, that's nothing but a fasting compendium site. It has everything, not just our stuff, but other people's stuff on fasting. And so again, great resources for you to learn more about that. And again, safe for everybody to do 16 hours a day. And then when it comes time to do a longer fast, remember history, exam, lab, and monitoring. Whether you're doing it at a facility or you're doing it with your local doctor, you still need to make sure that those issues have been properly addressed in order to ensure it's going to be safe and effective for you.
Excellent, doctor. Thank you very much for that. We're going to move on now to Dave F. Hi, Dave. Welcome.
Hi, Dr. Goldhamer. Thank you again for having the lecture. It's great. I read your book. I've been eating whole foods, plant-based for about 5 years, 41 years old. I don't have any health issues, and I do try to do intermittent fasting throughout the day, or, eating once a day. But my question is, I feel like there's so many healthy foods that we should be eating. And when I do eat, some days I'll eat more than once, but I'll eat like a lunch of, let's say, oatmeal or something with blueberries and some fruit. And I feel like I'm missing out on all the greens and salads. But later on in the day, when I do want to eat, or when I should be eating, I force myself to eat because I don't necessarily have the hunger. So I'm almost forcing myself to get out of that fast where I can technically fast another 24 hours. So my question is it better to keep fasting, or is it better to break the fast so that I get my greens and my G-bombs in, so to speak?
Well, I think you should fast 16 hours every day and then eat 3 healthy meals, including the greens. And just because you had oatmeal and fruit doesn't keep you from also having some celery and cucumbers and greens with that. In fact, we like including raw vegetable materials with fruit because the fiber in the vegetables, which is one of the important things, helps slow down the rate with which the sugars absorb, and then there's less insulin response, and then people don't get the binging and the craving and having difficulty regulating their dietary effects. And so I would say always include greens with your meals, even if you are having say fruit and oatmeal. There's nothing that keeps you from including some greens with that as well. In fact, you may get that you'll really like that. But if you have low density, high nutrition foods and you fill up the feeding bag 3 times a day, you'll get enough calories to maintain optimum weight, not necessarily current weight if it's excessive. So if you're a male, you can expect to lose about 3 pounds a week doing that with moderate activity. And then, as I said, if you need to do a longer fast, just make sure history exam labs suggest that it's a good candidate and you do it in a resting state.